Welcome to another episode of Israel Tech. I'm excited to have here Janina Lax. She's head of early stage startups at Google Cloud. We're here at their offices on floor 16, 14, 12.
12.
On cloud 12. See where that happened? On floor 12. So this is a massive tower, is largely Google Waves and other great Google properties. And I'm really excited to have you here to talk about early stage startups, what Google Cloud's doing for our tech ecosystem. Janina, thanks for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me, and let's get started.
Awesome. So first tell me, what exactly is Google Cloud do? What does Google Cloud do?
All right.
And then how is it different, how is it specialized uniquely for Israeli tech ecosystem?
All right. Well, Google Cloud is basically a cloud platform and offer our technologies to companies of all ages and sizes to enable them to build their products on Google's power and thereby go to market and basically use the power that Google uses for themselves to now build their products on and are able through that to scale globally and use the power of Google's network.
Awesome. So people are looking for Google's network. They want to build their product or their SaaS, and they will build it on Google's cloud.
Yep.
So Israel's known for its very unique tech ecosystem. So how would you say Google Cloud is different serving our ecosystem than other ecosystems?
The Israeli tech ecosystem is mainly derived by the digital natives, as we've called them all along. Very, very different to very traditional markets that are not as export-oriented like the US or most of the European markets. The Israeli tech drives the Israeli economy. And being Google Cloud in Israel, we've tried very early on to adapt our go-to-market to exactly that. So when other markets had their largest share in traditional enterprise customers, we've all along been investing in digital natives. And as of late, we've tried to adapt basically the feedback that we've gathered through thousands of startups that we've worked with since I joined at least, which has been 8 years by now, and try to basically frame this in a new strategy as to how we can best serve the startup ecosystem by establishing a new team that is called the Early Stage Startup Team. And this team comes with an immense amount of resources to basically answer the needs of those early stage startups.
Wait, so up until recently, you were serving larger, probably would you even still call them startups, but larger companies?
Yes, we've all along been serving startups of all shapes and sizes. But the larger Google Cloud customers are the ones that have already managed to scale, have already managed to raise their round A, or probably even already in scale, in their scale phase. So the way we support startups is by understanding what their requirements and needs are. So we have now a dedicated account management team that will understand where the startup is at. And we will start with an understanding of the tech that they want to build and what Google Cloud has in our portfolio that can actually help them build this technology in a manner that it's ready to scale when they're ready to go big. So we have those tech teams that are supporting that. If we look at it from a 3-pillar perspective, we have that dedicated account management and biz dev team that looks at their business and how it is they want to grow. How can we help them go to market? Secondary, how do we look at their tech? What does Google have in place today, going from core infrastructure services all the way to Gemini today, right? Everybody's talking about the AI models that we have today, all the way to what I call One Google. What can Google offer, and now I'm talking about Google as a whole, that can help the startup grow? Are you a fintech and you want to collaborate with GPay? Are you a cybersecurity company and you want to collaborate on our cybersecurity products? Are you a storage product and you want to understand how our database products work? We have all of that to offer so that companies can basically partner with us.
Awesome. So when you come and you reach them, how do you approach these how do you find the early stage startups? Because there's, I was looking on LinkedIn and there's like amount of people that are in stealth mode, or stealth startup.
Stealth is the largest company on the globe.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah. I do a lot of networking there.
Yeah.
And so how do you find, or how do they find you? How do you network your way into discovering these early stage startups? Yeah. Particularly many of them are first time founders. It could be right out of the army in their mid-20s. How do you reach them?
I mean, that's a very good question. I believe that's the challenge of any good B2B SaaS company. But luckily, we have a very good brand, and companies oftentimes want to look for that collaboration with Google Cloud. And so we try to be there. We try to host events that basically share knowledge. We try to bring the best of breed of what it is that we have to offer to the market by hosting regular events and basically educating the market. This is obviously how people then will realize, or companies will realize, oh, that's a good tech, I want to use that. We start the engagement, and thereby they get our support. So we have that marketing aspect, I'd call that, by creating those events. And more so, we have a dedicated local team that is sitting here in the Tel Aviv office that is out and about and basically serving the entire startup nation.
So Google Cloud's doing a lot of networking and bringing people together, whether you have different events or other ways that you're supporting them. And you talk about kind of how you work with other partners and other people in the industry to kind of let you know who are maybe becoming, who are these earlier stage startups that you're involved with. Are there any common denominators that you see in the founders that you're speaking to at early stage startups?
100%. I believe there's one core common denominator in the Israeli tech ecosystem, and it's what Shimon Peres actually defined as our key natural resource in this country, and that's our minds. Mm-hmm. It's that urge to create, it's that willingness to break boundaries, it's that imagination that not everything is possible and nothing can hold us back.
Right.
And so this is every time we host an event, it's something that you can feel in the room.
Right.
And I love that. And I think being part of that and being able to feed right into that is a privilege. And I can't wait, what else is coming. And every day that we're engaging with startups, you feel like you're part of it. And I love to see that. I love to see that we deliver no matter what as a country.
So when you communicate with your Google Cloud colleagues across the world, what kind of common denominators do you think that they see in their local startups, if they have any? And do they see the same common denominators from the outside looking in? I'm wondering how that's perceived.
Without a doubt, specifically Google Cloud Israel has always been perceived as a disruptor in terms of tech. We have companies that literally come out of nowhere and will break standard tech that is out there today.
But that's not coming from other markets?
It's not common to the extent, I believe, for the size of the market that we are. Right. Even if you look at Israel, Israel's high tech as part of our GDP, I think it represents roughly 18%.
Yeah.
That's actually double that of the US. Triple that of the EU.
Right.
So
I read something crazy. I didn't believe this. I had to actually search for it to see if it was true. In the 40 biggest companies from the European Union are more than 40 years old. Yeah. They're all before the internet. They've no innovation. It's fascinating. So
they need to play catch-up game while we're the ones actually defining the new.
I think they're lost in the dark. I don't know. For you on one internet company, in the top 40. Spotify was like number 58. I found that kind of be surprising. But so back to these ecosystems. So you're not having as much significant disruption, you would say. How would you define the disruption from Israel? I don't mean culturally, but what does that look like? Like taking a whole industry and throwing it on its head? What do you mean? What do you mean that the disruption coming out of the Israeli tech ecosystem is greater than those from others?
I believe that when you look at the market, and let's take Gen AI as an example, right? Like the generative AI era started as of late in 23, was it? 22. And we started the new tech rolling out slowly but surely. Actually, it wasn't that slow. It was pretty disruptive at the time. And there was a race for innovation. And you see that new S-curve kind of starting to pick up. And you see all those new branches of the innovation era of Gen AI coming out. And a lot of the startups that were born at the time obviously are not going to make it or not going to survive. But if you look at the key ones that are out there now actually making the race, a lot of them are Israeli. Right? You want to look at a vector database, you have Pinecone, actually also a Google Cloud customer. You want to look at AI21, a lot of pride today goes into that, also a Google Cloud customer. But with that, you have this Israeli tech coming into those new eras of innovation and being very disruptive. And I think we can feel that, and we're now looking for those next ones up next.
So when let's keep it on AI for a moment, because it's very cliche, but for good reason, the topic. I've always talked a lot for the last several years about the cybersecurity industry in Israel, and a lot of those early stage startups and how they've developed was kind of, they did things small, let's say in the army, and then they took some of that technology, that idea, and applied it to the private sector.
Yep.
How much of this is largely coming kind of from the Army? You learn a little bit from the Army, and then you go, how can I apply this to the private sector? I was wondering maybe if you see any kind of connection there. And then also, I know in cybersecurity, there's a very large network from those in the Army, from the 8200 unit. Do you think, is there something similar like that from your experience working with so many early stage? I mean, it's kind of hard. We're trying to map out the Israeli AI industry, but it's so new, I mean, globally. So maybe are there any common denominators of those founders that maybe you can share with us?
Yeah, definitely. I think that a common denominator there is the ability to adapt quickly. And if you look at the Israelis, the need to be able to adapt quickly is there.
Right.
It's just what we have to, what we're dealing with. The pace, if you literally go outside here and you walk the streets of Tel Aviv or Israel, you will feel that vibrant necessity to keep up the pace.
Right.
And so this is something you will find in those founders, and given their backgrounds and how they were raised, Israel is a melting pot. A lot of different cultures come together, and we created something new. And I think that element of continuously creating something new is part of what defines the entrepreneurial spirit that you will find in so many people, whether or not they define themselves as entrepreneurs. It's just part of how we do things. And I think that's what drives that urge to continue innovating. You can't help it. We can't help it.
Right.
It just happens.
Yeah, I think you said something right. It was out of necessity to survive. I think there's so many threats on Israel and the Jewish people forced to adapt and thrive, because if there's no other option. It's actually, I think, been our greatest strength, and is our enemies wanting to wipe us out. A lot of startups, these early stage startups you're working with, and one of the things that I've been to many times, I've held many events, and I know you guys were in this building, and it moved over like 2 doors down is your Google for Startups campus,
Yes.
right? So maybe you can kind of talk about that, and how does that fit into the whole Google Cloud and the Google Tech ecosystem here? Because there's a lot going on for those that don't know, right? You have first, Waze was founded here and takes up 4 floors in this building, as an example, and is obviously owned by Google. And then you have the startups, and then you have the cloud, and then you're working with not just larger companies. Now you're facilitating and supporting early stage startups, and you're doing events with them, and then you have a campus next door that you're doing this. So it's like, there's a lot.
Yeah.
How does this all tie together into Google's greater mission, and how does that play a part within Google Cloud and what you do, and more importantly, to our ecosystem?
We can no longer separate just a space where we host startups to give them the benefit of networking, working from a certain location, having events there, from the tech. There is no startup without tech. And so we've realized that as a local team, and we've
Okay, wait, can you talk about that
yeah.
a little bit more? What do you mean there's no startup without tech? It seems like it makes sense, but I'm thinking about it in practice. What do you mean?
In practice, it means that if you have an idea, you want to validate it on technology, right?
Right.
Snapchat was a company built by just 2 founders, and they put basically just their code on something called App Engine, and they started scaling overnight to millions of users. They wouldn't have been able to do that without the right tech supporting that, right? And so, and I can give you a bunch of other examples that have done the same. So you want to be ready for scale. You want to use the right technology for your product, so that when you're ready to scale, nobody's going to let you down.
Got it, right.
When you are a startup, and most of our Israeli startups have technology, even in the biotech world, you will use very heavy GPUs, right? Heavy machines that are able to run those algorithms that they built. And so you want to run that on the infrastructure of a large cloud service provider, being Google Cloud. And so we realized that, and more so, we realized that we want to equip those startups early on with the knowledge around what it takes to build great technology. And so now we've basically created a new space. We actually offer startups to work from Google for startups and get the support from my team, which is hand-holding them in building their tech stack, getting exposed to co-marketing opportunities, to co-sell opportunities, and even if they will, get on our marketplace and sell their solution through Google Cloud. And so ever since we've been doing that, we've been gaining even more traction in the market. It makes us more accessible, and that's where we want to be ultimately. We want to be out there. We want to feel part of the ecosystem. We want startups to make sure that they can reach us. We want to be approachable. if you will, I'll be happy to share my number here, my direct email. You can call me. We want to be approachable. We want to be there for in the right moment, so that when the startups are ready to build their new tech, they can do it with the right tools.
Yeah, we'll put the information for them to be able to reach out if they want to build on Google Cloud. We'll put it down in the description.
Good.
So you're serving here the industry, and there's a lot, obviously, technology that we discussed.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go back a little bit, maybe actually your personal story, because you're not from here. And how does one, something that comes up a lot, especially for immigrants, and you're one, and so am I, is how do I get into this tech industry? I don't have a tech background. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about your backstory, how you got to kind of where you are now, and then how one were to get into tech.
Yeah. So I am indeed in Ola Khadasha. So I made Aliyah, moved to Israel around I think this year I'm closing out 11 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
I closed out 10, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a milestone. People told me that until 10 years, that's it. No more. You're no longer Ola, you're Israeli. And people always laugh at me that in Germany I was very Israeli, and here I'm considered very German. So I'm not sure where that stands today after all this time.
I can relate.
But so I made Aliyah. I actually came here to do my undergrad at the IDC, and that was a very easy and good transition because you're in a very international environment there. You hear a lot of English. It doesn't help you with your Hebrew necessarily, but it definitely gets you slowly but surely into the ecosystem. And I was actually fortunate enough to also be part of the Zell entrepreneurship program there early on. And so got into the VC and what it takes to fail early and fail fast. And I did that.
Getting with it, how do you exactly get into tech? So let's say you're speaking to an immigrant or someone that wants to move here, wants to get into the tech industry because it pays well, it's fun, it's fast moving, it's hard, it's challenging. So what would you tell them? Let's say they're moving here from Germany like you or from the United States.
Yeah, I think that one of the benefits in the Israeli tech ecosystem is that it's primarily even bilingual, right? So you definitely find English probably also as the core language in writing. Even in speaking, you will find yourselves in boardrooms and meeting rooms. They don't mind speaking in English. So that shouldn't be something that holds you back in terms of the language barrier. But what I would strongly recommend to Olim or people who are considering to start a career or continue their career here in Israel is to come with a specific background already, right? Bring something with you that is unique and that has a transferable skill.
You want to give an example or two?
Yeah. So let's take the data science industry as an example. If you can come with internships that already differentiate you from many other, let's say if you're a university grad, right, or if you have a couple of years of experience in other tech companies, if you can come with experience that shows that you've already started your career out, and you come with those very initial years of experience, I think that is much easier transferable than just having started out not being able to differentiate yourself from other candidates.
Mm-hmm. So what if you don't have that? What if you're moving here and you didn't go to college, or you did? Yeah. You're a hard worker, you're intelligent, you don't have the network, you have the English.
Yeah. So there are quite a few Israeli networks for Olim also, which I'm happy to share.
Yeah, sure.
But I believe that if the willingness is there and that drive to succeed, you'll find your place. Meaning, I can only recommend, and this is how I started my career out, this is how my husband has been basically landing his current gig, and some of my cousins from Long Island or so have done the same. They've basically offered themselves to intern at a startup, and I did those 3 times throughout my university degree for free. But all of a sudden, I had a track record and some experience. I was interning at a tech consulting company, Nomadigo, here in Herzliya, during my first years of university. Then I was in a real estate company in New York City, and then I actually went and did some sort of fellowship at HSBC, where I basically put my studies to work. And figured that I don't want to be in finance.
Yeah, funny. We were telling off camera, I have a finance background too.
Yeah.
And I also learned I didn't want to be. It lacked personality.
Yeah.
But yeah, so much went down the ads route, kind of like you did too.
So I just say, like, don't be worried. Get your hands dirty.
Right.
Dive right in.
Right.
Find yourself a spot to intern. Everybody's happy to have.
Are interns
sharp
common
minds.
here? I find that I don't see them
Not
very.
so, but
they're
if
not
you-
because like I look for them or any people want interns. Like, hey, I'm here for the summer. I'd love to come and intern. Let's say by our company, Wadi Digital, for marketing. And like the few months isn't worth it by the time I train or anything. It's just we don't get the value out of it. I don't feel like internship is it's not a cultural thing here.
It's not a cultural. It's
Why
not,
is that?
Because it's just not established in the sense that they don't have like slots. Like for example, you'd need to offer yourself just as a free resource to come in. And I believe that a lot of times being a fly on the wall inside one of those tech companies can already expose you to so much. And from there on, it'll be so much easier for you. So come in, prove yourself, get acquainted, build a network, and that will already open so many doors.
So the ecosystems you were saying lacks internship, but there's a lot of great things going on in the ecosystem, and obviously you're very much involved being here at Google Clouds. Like, what do you say? Let's go back a little bit into the ecosystem a little bit more. And what are you seeing there? How things are different? How the ecosystem is responding, especially since the war, since it started?
I think what we've been seeing across the board in the Israeli high-tech and startup tech ecosystem is that we're all able to deliver no matter what, right? And so while you have challenges and while the market to begin with wasn't that stable, we still have a lot of innovation that's happening. And I believe that is due to the fact that change basically drives innovation. And whether or not we intended for this
Right.
change, we're now part of it.
Right.
And so we can see a lot of new innovation coming out, for example, in defense tech. We can see more and better cybersecurity offerings. And we have a lot of the skilled workforce to actually be coming out with those ideas. And so overall, I'd say that while these are challenging times, we will find ourselves accelerating
Right.
from here onwards.
Yeah, I see a lot of innovation and like willpower and just there's comes out after war. And I think in Israel, like many other people have war, I think we'll see a baby boom and we'll also see a tech boom. I think we'll see both booms come
And I
together.
think that's
People
already
want to innovate.
happening. Those seeds have already been planted, and we're starting to see that come out.
What about, I don't know if this is relevant, space tech? I've been following a lot more space technology the last few years, and obviously I like to say whoever controls space kind of controls Earth in a sense. Do you see more innovation coming out of there? I feel like that's probably one of the greatest opportunities for Israel because you talk about defense and space is a major component of it, especially when it comes to missile defense and things like that. Do you see more space technology happening in the ecosystem too soon, or?
It's probably a little bit too soon. It's less of a vertical that we're doubling down on because this is more of deep tech. Deep tech are technologies that
Right.
take 10 years plus to develop. And we are rather on the other end,
Right.
edge of that, right? We want to see those very quickly scaling
Right.
startups. A lot of our startups are B2B SaaS companies.
Right.
So they'll develop a platform that they can sell that others can use as part of their tech stack, as part of their technologies. And so that's kind of like the end that we're at, on that very hyperscale tech, quickly developing technologies, other side of that scale.
We all want, obviously, the fast-paced one is probably the fastest road to revenue and being able to help and see the turnaround of what works and what doesn't work.
Yeah.
Seeing are there other technologies, because we did talk about cyber, we mentioned a couple times, talk about AI, and then we talk on the other end space, which is probably the furthest thing from SaaS that you can do in technology. What other technology industries are you seeing kind of more of a greater trend, let's say in the last year than you did a few years ago? Because you've been here for 8 years, right? So you've probably seen waves of different trends of technology, cyber, now AI. What other trends are you seeing?
I think that when we look at trends, let's maybe break it down by vertical. So when in the beginning we've looked at more, let's call them easier to be disrupted verticals, right? So we've already gone through banking, finance, insurtech. Now I'm seeing other markets or verticals such as prop tech, ag tech, agriculture tech is getting really big. A lot of climate tech. Google has actually acquired one of those climate tech companies called Brisometer that is now part of Google, and they're actually sitting here and actually selling those services now to other Israeli startups. So we are seeing that evolution moving towards more sustainable solutions, right, or companies. So climate tech, sustainability, ag tech, food tech. So those markets or verticals that hadn't been disrupted yet are now up, and so we're seeing those trends very much in those fields.
Awesome. And so going forward, do you think we'll see more of those? Do you think cybersecurity has matured, or do you think we should still expect to see more dramatic growth?
I think cybersecurity companies will continue coming out of the Israeli market. And I believe that the solutions are getting more and more specific. Over time, we are more and more aware of where breaches can happen. And so the solutions that come out are much more targeted to that. And while we are looking a lot on the one side of it, which is enterprise solutions, some companies are now coming out with solutions on the user side, right? So like your father's generation or even your grandparents' generation that are now all out in the web and are leaving their credit cards all over the place.
It's frightening.
And it's frightening. And so,
or the opposite, like my dad, who will never share his credit card and never share anything, even over the phone.
I mean, yeah, and then they will leave the door open,
right?
By just writing it down and leaving
right,
it
right.
like a little,
How did you
little
know?
note somewhere, right? And so this is, I think, the new kind of like reverse trend that we're seeing. So getting the basics right, and you can have like a very complex, alarm system of your house, but if you literally leave the door open, you're completely exposed. And so I'm seeing a little bit of that trend coming back. And yeah, I'm curious to see what else is out there.
What are the headwinds and challenges you think our ecosystem is going to have? Like, there's a lot of things obviously we always need to overcome. There's always room for improvement. Every person, every organization, every ecosystem.
Yeah.
Well, what do you think are probably some things that we can focus on as an ecosystem, or maybe highlight or discuss more that can hopefully bring in more solutions?
Yeah. So I think overall, from my angle, the early stage startups are definitely challenged with raising capital and what I call good capital, right? So not all money is the same money. You want to make sure that you raise from good investors. You want to make sure that you raise at a good evaluation and not being taken advantage of the current economic situation where valuations are low.
Right.
And so finding that right balance and creating a support ecosystem where serial founders are helping out new entrepreneurs on how to do this and not to fail at first and not to fall into those traps. I believe also that the economic challenges, as well as the wider market challenges that we've been experiencing, are leading every early stage startup to focusing on product market fit earlier than what they would have probably in 2021 or 22. So you want to get that product market fit earlier. Everybody's talking about product-led growth, and I completely agree with that. I think we are in an era where product is king. If you get your product right, you can get your users, and you will see that natural growth come from there. And the way I connect the dots is that now that we're in a way in the efficiency era, you got to get that right, and you got to get that right early. And so you want to have that product market fit. You want to have those design partners, and I think this is where the Israeli ecosystem is super unique. We create a network where we can test our products with each other.
Yeah, you always see everyone's first clients with these small Israeli companies.
There you
go.
Start. But you get great feedback, and you get honest feedback. And this is, I think, another thing that Israelis are very unique in that sense. We give honest feedback. You're not going to find people wasting their time just by being nice or giving feedback that is irrelevant. So companies or early stage startups specifically will need to iterate very, very quickly to get that PMF right.
You talked a lot about early stage startups, finding the right partners and all of that. So obviously Google Cloud's been a great partner to a lot of the people, a lot of the startups and the first time founders, even returning founders here. If people kind of want to get to know how they can get more involved or learn how Google Cloud can help their Israeli tech company, what would you recommend to them?
So if you're a startup and you're just starting out with a great idea, you can't sleep anymore because that idea keeps kicking, / you're already past that and you want to build your MVP, this is a great moment to reach out to us and to start evaluating what it is that we can do together. We realize that a lot of the early stage startups, or basically any founder, is scarce on resources, and that can be either funding, right, or like having the money to support your idea at first, and also on the hands on deck, right? And so we've come up with a solution that can help that. We actually give out Google Cloud credits. It starts with $2,000 for any founder, and it can grow to $25,000 if you're part of an accelerator, and it can grow all the way to 100 or 250K if you're an AI-first startup. So we realize that this is a resource that can really help startups, especially the ones that are developing tech that is very GPU or TPU heavy, that can really make use of those resources and build out their minimum viable product to see whether or not they have a product market fit. And so with those credits, you can totally do that, probably even onboard your first customers. So for that, you can feel free to reach out. And on the other side, we also have the tech resources. So if you need more hands on deck, we can either finance that through one of our partners, through professional services, or we even give you our Google minds and brains and hands to literally give you a hand and see what it is that we can do to help you build that technology and go to market faster.
And if they want to find out more about that, how can they get involved with Google Cloud and the Google resources, and how can people stay up with you?
So first of all, you can feel free to reach out to me directly on my LinkedIn profile. So that's me, Janina Lax, on LinkedIn. Or obviously we have a lot of marketing initiatives. So Google Cloud Israel hashtag, right? Or just come around. We're here in the Electra Tower, right on Yigal Allon in Tel Aviv. And you're welcome to meet us here on our Google Cloud floors or across the street in campus for startups. And we're very happy to and excited to meet the next big founders.
They also have good food and called good coffee, which is probably more important than anything else. Thank you so much for everything you're doing for the ecosystem. I appreciate your time.
Well, it was great
That's
to
awesome.
meet you. Thank you
Google
for
Cloud's
having
doing
me.
great things. I'm happy to be a big fan of Google and what you guys have been up to, and love what you're doing for our ecosystem. And I'm honored to have the opportunity to have a conversation with you. Thank you.
Same for me. Thank you.